wasn't the defeat that some United fans feared it would be. But at the same time, do they take solace from that? Or are they sort of disappointed that they didn't really have a go at it?
I think it sort of shows the gulf and where both teams are at the moment. I can understand the tactics that Manchester United decided to go for, because when we watched them against Fulham last week and you could see the distances and the gaps between the back four and the midfield, and how Fulham sort of exposed that. To do that against the Manchester City side that we know are so good at finding space and utilising space, they couldn't. They had to be more sort of defensively organised, but it certainly did show just how far Manchester City are away from Manchester United at this moment in time.
Let's talk about Marcus Rashford, seeing as it was the last player we picked up on. He felt he was forced to defend himself this week, and he came out with those comments. Read into those what you will, they're subject to debate. Yeah. Did he answer critics that he has with that goal?
Well, I think that's what he has to do. I think performances on the pitch, goals, assists, what he did last season, I think that's the only way that you can answer your critics. You know, I think you can come out and give interviews, but that's just talk, isn't it? So I think as pundits, what we do is we watch and we analyse and we see how players are performing on the pitch. You know, we're not here to talk about their character or to talk about things that's happening off the field. It's to say what he's doing. And Marcus Rashford hasn't been the same player as he was last season. And I think there's lots of factors probably contributing to that. Not having Luke Shaw, I think certainly impacts his game. I think the fact that Manchester United haven't been as fluid as maybe they were at points last season, changing of players, injuries, different things like that has certainly had an impact. But I think him personally, he'll know himself that he's not reaching maybe the levels that he knows he can reach.
He's been accused of looking disinterested.
Yeah.
At times, and you highlighted that bit where he could have come across and closed it down and just didn't get across there. I mean, you've been in plenty of different dressing rooms. Have you ever come across someone to you who looks disinterested? But I hear from footballers, and we don't know what's going on off the pitch for Marcus Rashford. But I've heard footballers before say, actually, the 90 minutes of a game is the only time I get release from stuff that's going on off the pitch. So there seems to be a little bit of... That doesn't kind of marry up with those two different ideas, does it?
The one thing... Well, the couple of things I'd say is he looks like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, Marcus Rashford. So whether there is something going on off the pitch, not sure. But there quite possibly could be, because he does not look happy. I was at the game yesterday and trying to watch him as closely as possible. He looked disinterested again. It was almost like he'd scored his goal, and that was the point where he was like, I've done my bit now. But the tracking back, the working hard, the being strong in possession. Manchester United wanted a free kick for the Phil Foden goal where he goes under a challenge from Kyle Walker. That's weak. That's not a player willing to get hold of the ball and take a challenge and accept it. That was a get out of jail. Like, I can't be bothered, but just a weakness in his game, which we wouldn't have seen when he was in that red-hot form last year. And that's crept in at the moment. But the other side of it is that, I mean, he only lasted, 60, 70 minutes of the game?
Not when
yeah. And I just think there's more to Marcus Rashford. But when you're not feeling great, it's not a good thing when you're on the pitch. But the point I'd make is that you can clip up any game and you can see where a person looks disinterested, or they get bypassed because they can't quite close down. So I'm being harsh on him on that clip, but there could have been 10 seconds earlier, he might have made a 30, 40 yard run. So I'm being nitpicky on that one, where I'm saying he could close down quicker. He might have been absolutely zapped at that point. So there's where we can analyse things in different ways.
Whenever you went out on the pitch, were you playing for yourself first rather than for your manager, or do you play for your manager first?
You play for yourself to a certain degree first, because you've got to have a pride about yourself. If you play for yourself and know that you do your job, then the team come into that afterwards. There will always be a sense of, I need to do this for the team, but you've got to get your head right first, knowing that you're looking after yourself. It's a fine balance, because you're in a team environment, but if you don't think there's any personal pride in yourself and take personal pride, you're never going to excel for your team. So, yeah, he's in a rut at the moment. And as I said before, he could have hit that ball over 100 times and he might have only scored 3 or 4 of those opportunities, if only one, the way he hit it. But it's the rest of the game that doesn't look right for Marcus Rashford.
OK, the defeat, of course, does damage their chances of Champions League place, both Villa and Tottenham winning this weekend. Is that gap getting too big for them now?
Yeah, maybe, because you can't really see those teams slipping up. But Ten Hag said, look, we still have to go for that, and they do. And I think the thing when you look about Manchester United that we do have to remember is the injuries are bound to have an impact. I think Ten Hag is still, the jury's out on him. He knows that. I'm sure he knows that he's under a lot of scrutiny. But you just look at the fact that...
Yeah, it's looking dark.
Yeah.
I just noticed that. It's perfect timing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I think with Højlund obviously being out injured, that doesn't just affect Manchester United going forward in terms of his ability. We know like he was in that purple patch, but it affects the other forward line because they've had to change positions. Martinez, no Maguire yesterday, no Luke Shaw. That's all going to have an impact on the way that Manchester United play. And you looked at didn't have the impacts from the bench that maybe Manchester City had. So there was a lot of things I think you have to sort of say, well, Manchester United probably had to play in a certain way because of a lot of factors.
Yeah, they're under this new ownership now, but they're still under profit and sustainability rules.
Yeah.
You can't get away from that one. Now, on the one side, Manchester United, globally, one of the biggest teams still in the world. So I've got that on one side of my head. On the other side of my head, I've got how big a rebuilding process this is. The fact that some very big names have gone in there and not managed to do it. Van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, now Erik ten Hag. How attractive is the possibility, if they were to get rid of Ten Hag, that Manchester United job? Because there's an awful lot of work there, and even second place for a lot of United fans is considered failure.
Yeah. Well, it will always be an attractive job because it is Manchester United, and like you say, they are huge globally. They're arguably still one of the top teams in world football, no matter where they are at the moment. And any manager would want to be the manager who turns that round. And every manager will believe they can, and rightly so, because why would you shirk away from a job like that? And every manager's gone in there hoping for the same thing. The one thing that they need to do is they need a clear out of players. The big thing is who's going to buy those players and how much are they willing to accept on players because they're underperforming. There's no... I mean, it's quite clear that every manager that's come in is having the same issues with players and lack of sort of desire to run for the shirt and to do the hard bits. The big thing for me is that Spurs were in a similar situation last year where the football wasn't great, they weren't playing attractive football, there felt like there was a disconnect between the ownership and the players and the club. That's gone. Arsenal were the same, and they bought Arteta in where there was an ownership issue. They bought in the manager, and things go right on the pitch, and performances pick up on the pitch. And that talk about the ownership and the investment in the club suddenly disappears. We don't hear anything about Daniel Levy anymore. That's gone to bed, that's gone quiet. Why? Because Postecoglou's got them playing in a certain way and a certain style where Spurs fans are now happy about what's going on the pitch. When things don't go well on the pitch, you pick out everything. You absolutely dissect the club and you go into anything that you can find just to find an excuse as to what's going on the pitch. They've got the same problem at the moment. However, what I would say is bring the right man in. I thought he was the right man. I really did. But I'm starting to doubt that now. But if you bring the right man in and change the style on the pitch, things suddenly start to disappear off the back of that. But they've now got new ownership, which should help that.
But if you're a top manager on the planet at the moment, right, this summer you're given the choice, Liverpool or Manchester United, which do you choose?
Well, that's not their choice.
Yeah, but if they're both in for you, both those clubs are in for you.
I'm going to Liverpool.
Okay. Manchester United or Bayern Munich?
Depends where you're from as a coach. If I'm from England, I'm going to Manchester United.
Barcelona or Manchester United?
Manchester United, because of the finances at Barcelona and the predicament they're in.
I'm glad I didn't get asked the question.
Sue? Right.